The information contained in this video is intended for educational purposes only. It is not a substitute for professional medical advice. Hello and welcome. I am so excited. Today I am doing a very special interview with a very special person. A few weeks ago, a wonderful woman, Patty Holden, reached out to me and said, I have a story to share with you about something that I went through. She is going to share with us her incredible story about how a shocking and emotional life event led to the development of a tumor in her breast and how she handled the entire situation using the knowledge of the 5 biological laws of German new medicine. And she found me through my videos on YouTube, which I just think is so cool. And she found that the videos were very helpful for her as she went through this entire process. Patty is a former ballroom dancer, and she's now a nutritional therapist and anthropologist who studies the deterioration of food culture in America. She was born in Oklahoma. She's a member of the Cherokee Nation, and she now lives in Florida, where she teaches classes on nutrition, healthy cooking, ancient medicine, and runs a business called Traditional Lifestyle Creations. She is very passionate about bringing back ancient health traditions and reconnecting people to the lost wisdom of our ancestors. So obviously she is such a cool person. So just want to start by just having Patty share a little bit about your personal history and kind of what led you to this, where you are now with your health and with the development of the tumor in your breast.
Okay, well, I will make this very short and quick, and that is that I did used to be a ballroom dancer, which involved the acrylic nails and the makeup and the fast-paced lifestyle. So, and then towards the end of that, I did go to college, and I went all the way through grad school, and I was a single mom. And by the end of all of that, my health had kind of gone to a deterioration. And someone had told me about the alkaline diet and all these kinds of things. And so I went on a health journey, and from 2009 until basically my father died in October of 2017. So basically 16 months ago around. Up until then, I was, and even after that, I was doing so many things for my health. Diet change, detoxification, all kinds of ways of detoxification. And right before he died, I had just recently found out about German new medicine, which was kind of ironic. And that's what helped get me through most of my experience since he passed away. He died in a car accident overnight, and we can talk about that in a minute. But so I thought I was doing everything healthy, and so basically, throughout that, I became a nutritional therapist, and I teach people how to reverse disease in their body by diet change. So I have all these skills and all these tools at my home that were already handy to me when this happened. So that's basically, I guess, sets the stage of where this all starts.
Yeah, and that's what, many people who are living very healthy lifestyles kind of get really shocked and kind of feel betrayed by their body when they develop something like a tumor, because they, by all other measures, thought that they were, quote, healthy. And most people see cancer or tumors in the body as a profound sign of unhealthiness, a profound sign of disease. But with German new medicine, we know it's different than that. And it was so great that you had some of that background when your family went through a very shocking situation. And so let's look at the shock, because that's what sets off a biological program, is when you are shocked, when you are caught off guard, when something happens that was completely unexpected, and your body starts a biological program to help you deal with the fallout of what happened. So if you could share with us your conflict shock, your DHS that occurred when you lost your father.
So it was a Monday night, and it was 11:30 at night, and I was basically getting into bed when the phone rang. I was sitting on the bed and the phone rings, and it was my daughter. She's a deputy. She was, I think, around 24 years old at the time. This was about, like I said, about 16 months ago, October 23rd, 2017. So I'm getting into bed, the phone rings, and it's my daughter, and she says, "Are you sitting down?" And I said, well, I am now, what's up? And she said, well, Grandma, just, I don't know if somebody had called her or texted her, but somehow she had gotten information that there had been a car accident and that my parents had both been pushed off the road by a drunk driver, and that my father had been airlifted to the hospital, and that it didn't look good. And an hour later, she shows up at the front door, and she had to actually, the sheriff's office brought her, they told her first, and then they brought her to my house, and she told me around 1 o'clock in the morning that my father had in fact died. And he had just been at my house the week before and visited us. She had gotten Deputy of the Year, and he had come down to visit us the week before to see her get that award. So his presence was still very recent. Mm. So that was like one of those nights that nobody ever wants to have to go through, but we all eventually will have to go through something.
So that that shocking situation from the German medicine perspective, you didn't know at the time, so you had this huge emotional trauma. And when the trauma happens, we don't know specifically how our body is going to interpret it. And you don't find out until you resolve it. So you went through a period of grief. You went through a period where, if you could share with us a little bit, like when you were conflict active and you realized I'm not sleeping, could you share with us a little bit about that process and how long that took?
Well, it was right about then. Because I work with people who have disease, I had a friend who had breast cancer, and of course she kept going back to her oncologist and getting told all the bad news. She wasn't really resolving any of the conflicts between her and her daughter, which I think were at the root cause of her problem. And I was watching your videos, and it was actually trying to help her.
Oh, wow.
So, but I did not have any symptoms at that point. But I knew I was in conflict active because I was waking up around 4 o'clock in the morning every single night, already crying from waking up from the dream of that phone call. So that phone call just kept waking me up in the morning. And this went on, for probably 6 months after the car accident. And in my mind, I was actually more concerned about my mom, because the more I watched the videos about German New Medicine, the more I realized we were in one of those situations where everybody in our family could be victim to one of these kinds of things, because this was very traumatic for all of us. And especially my mother, who was in the car with him, and they were talking for a good 15 or 20 minutes before they pulled her out. And then when they pulled him out, the bleeding just went crazy, and he died within a few minutes. So I'm still concerned about her because she's still not sleeping.
Yeah, so you mostly were, trying to help your friend, trying to help your mom, not even necessarily like maybe having an idea, okay, I'm waking up. When did it become clear to you that I've got to resolve this conflict?
When I started to understand what the difference between conflict active and the conflict resolution, when I started to understand the difference between the sleeping cycles, that's when I started to realize I'm not sleeping. And so that's when I started to purposely engaging with emotional trauma, breathing, exercising, and meditation, and just conscious thinking about these things, and realizing that I was still in conflict active, and that I needed to really focus on sleeping at night. I needed to get over this as quickly as I could. So I did 3 rebirthing sessions in a 1-week period on a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And all 3 sessions brought up emotional traumas from the past. The third one was so traumatic at the end that I actually threw up. I had to run to the bathroom and throw up. So all 3 of them brought up all kinds of stuff from the past involving men. And none of them were my father, by the way. My father there was never an issue between me and my father. There was only love. But I have had a lot of traumatic experiences in the past with other men. So these things all became apparent, and this was in the summer of last year. So this was about 6 to 8 months after my father's death that I engaged in these activities. And it was about 2 weeks after those 3 rebirthing exercises that I started to notice a small lump on the right breast. That's when I started to realize I might be going through this myself.
Wow. Okay. Now, were the rebirthing technique that you did, was this something you went through with someone else, or did you do it all by yourself?
I did it with someone else.
Oh, you did. Okay.
Experience with this, yeah.
Okay. Wonderful. And so was it the third one that you just really felt that, like, that release? Was it immediate that you started sleeping the next night, or did it kind of take a few days to normalize?
It was within days after that.
Okay.
I started to notice and tell others, wow, I'm actually starting to sleep at night. And then I know it was about 2 weeks after that I noticed the lump, because that's when I was like starting to line dots up in my head for myself.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I, because I had, like I said, because I actually teach classes on how to do certain things for the body nutrition wise when you notice a lump. So I just started doing them, figuring I'll kick this quickly. This will just come and go, and I'll never tell anybody.
Mm-hmm.
That was last summer.
And so here you are in the healing phase. So just so everybody who's watching understands, the second biological law walks us through the law of 2 phases, where normally we're in this normal day-night rhythm, our body is in a state of homeostasis. Then the moment a shock happens, the moment she got the phone call, she shifted into conflict active phase, which is heightened sympathetic activity. And that is when the tissues of the body are actively adapting to help you to resolve this situation. And so it took her 6 months of being in emotional grief and not sleeping during the night until she got to the point where she realized, I need to resolve this. She did the rebirthing techniques, which helped her to emotionally process not just the loss of her father, but a lot of emotional trauma from the past. And then she shifted into the healing phase, which is when she goes, oh, there's a lump, and it's on your right breast, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and you write with your right hand also?
Correct.
Okay, so the right hand, so if you write with your right hand and you have a right laterality, the right side of your body is associated with any significant relationship that's not your mother or your child. And so it makes perfect sense that a lump would develop during the healing phase of a traumatic loss or a separation conflict regarding the right breast, because the breast ducts are associated with a conflict of, it's a traumatic separation, like a torn from my breast conflict. Biologically, the body associates that particular type of loss with like having your baby torn away from you, but any significant relationship. So in her case, the traumatic loss of her father, who she had just seen the week before, that's how her body processed this. And during the active conflict, there is erosion in the lining of the breast ducts. And then as soon as the conflict was resolved, the restoration process begins. That's what happens during the healing phase, is the body is setting the tissues back to normal. And so it goes through a process of building kind of like a scab. It's a restoration tissue. And, any conventional, if a conventional doctor looked at the breast, they'd say, oh, this is a type of tumor. We don't know exactly because you've never had it tested, correct, medically?
It is benign.
Okay. Yeah, wonderful. And so it is, the benign means it's no longer active. It's no longer, it's going through this healing process. So let's go into discussing a little more of what you went through during the healing phase, which lasted, we can talk about how long that lasted, the symptoms that you experienced, and then we'll talk about the turning point that you got to with your healing crisis.
Yep. So I have always told people, now this thing kept getting gradually getting larger throughout the fall. And the thing is that I have a long history of being, like, if I was out with friends and everybody was having a glass of wine, I would have a glass of wine. So I have a long history of being a social drinker. But after that third rebirthing session, there was all of a sudden a realization in my head that I was very angry over things in my past, like 20 years ago, and that I needed to get over that anger. That didn't mean it happened overnight. That didn't mean that the behavior changes happened overnight. But throughout the fall, everything started to line up. But this thing kept getting bigger and bigger. So I have always taught people that when they start doing these food protocols and these detoxification protocols, I always tell them that at some point their body may go into a healing crisis, and they may break a fever, and they may feel like doo-doo for a while, but that as long as they keep going and keep the body moving in the right direction, that you know, this is called a healing crisis. So anyways, I'm going throughout the fall and I'm doing some food protocols, but I'm not doing it very seriously. But as this thing gets larger and larger, I start taking it more seriously. And by mid-December, I decided to go ahead and put myself on basically all the food protocols and all the detoxification protocols. I did a few coffee enemas for myself, and I started taking this more seriously. And then on Christmas Eve and on Christmas Day and on the day after Christmas, for 3 days in a row, I had a low-grade fever. And if I recall in one of the videos, I think it might have been your video, there's a fever period. I know about this, and I know that this was the oncoming of a healing crisis. For the next week after that, I had to go through several boxes of tissues because I just had to keep blowing my nose, like constantly, even through the night. And there was mucus coming out of my ears. And there was mucus that I was there was like a lot of mucus that I was coughing up. And then there was mucus even coming out other places. But it was like my whole body was just purging itself of mucus. And because I teach ancient Greek medicine, I know that is because my body it's doing something, it's cleansing itself, basically. So New Year's Eve, I had my last glass of wine, and it wasn't really intentional. It was just that the next day I woke up, and for 3 days in a row, I just basically, maybe there was a shift. During that 3 days, I started to realize that my body was getting ready to go through something, and I might need to stop drinking, period. So I did. And the moment I did, I felt a spiritual and a mental and a physical alignment kind of thing. I felt everything heal at the same time. Like I let go of anger and alcohol, and I let my body just go into this healing crisis. And within 4 days, my shoulder exploded into so much pain that, I mean, it was like childbirthing pain and it lasted almost throughout the entire month of January. And the only thing that kind of put a block on it was when I went to a friend of mine who is a doctor of Chinese medicine, and she put some injections of ozone into my shoulder, which kind of put some of the pain down. And finally that night, I was able to sleep just a little bit at a time. But I couldn't sit, I couldn't lay down. And the only position that I was even able to be halfway comfortable in was standing. So imagine from January the 4th to January the 23rd, trying to come up with ways that you could sleep standing up because you can't, you're just in so much pain. So I didn't go to any doctors because I am terrified of oncology, to be honest. And so I didn't really want to know what was going on. But because I watched your video during that phase a few times, and it was because I kept, everything you said should happen did happen. And so I felt, even though it was so painful, I actually felt like I was going through a healing crisis and that I was not dying. And I was doing coffee enemas every night, that I couldn't handle the pain, and that helped. I was doing lots of turmeric and curcumin. I was doing all of my stuff, you know. I was like doing sulfur, and I was doing everything anti-inflammatory that I could. And here we are, it's March, the 1st?
Mm-hmm.
All the pain is gone, and all I'm left with is a benign tumor that I've had it injected with ozone 3 times. And it is just basically shriveling up at this point. You can still tell that there was something there, but it is disintegrating and kind of dissolving and turning into like a blob of, where it used to be a perfect shape, now it's just like bleh.
That is so amazing. Your experience, because I feel like this is such encouragement for other people who are going through this, because that intense healing crisis, healing phase that you went through with your shoulder, which is very interesting because, again, we're kind of focusing on the breast and the breast lump, but this shoulder issue is associated with relationship self-devaluation. And so that anger, that stuff you were holding on to regarding traumas with men in the past, that all got healed at the same time, it seems like. It seems like that rebirthing really made a profound shift in what you were holding on to. And then releasing the alcohol seemed like just that last step of resolution, that last step of spiritual, emotional resolution that allowed you to kind of go full force into healing. And it sounds like that pain, I mean, I've heard that bone pain is crazy intense because the periosteum stretches, and it's crazy for a while. And most people, are afraid of pain. They don't understand the purpose of pain. And so you stayed strong. You did what you believed in. You did all of your protocols, and that's just so helpful because a lot of people have a hard time, and it's really not suggested to do nothing. Do something you believe in. Do something that you believe is helping you. Something like coffee enemas are helpful because they kind of give you a little break. They give you a little break from the vagotonia and the swelling, and kind of will help you to get through that phase. And it sounds like you did it, and everything that you did was supportive of the healing phase instead of trying to shut it down or block it. You're like, I know that this has purpose. I know that this has meaning. And you relied on the 5 biological laws, and you're like, okay, there's a pattern here. Ancient doctors have observed patterns. Dr. Hammer observed these really profound patterns. And by looking at that and following those guidelines, you didn't panic, you didn't freak out, which is like the number one thing that causes downward spirals. When you go into the doctor and then you go to the oncologist and they say it's this, and your head is spinning.
and people believe that they are getting. I actually believe that whatever you believe, that you can actually drive a disease one way or the other, just by the way you project it with your thoughts. So I just kept telling my roommate and my friend that it felt like I was having surgery. And it did. I just felt like I was having surgery on some old dead tissue that was just needing to go. And right now I did lose. It's weird because you can tell when I hold my arms in certain ways that there's muscles on my left arm that are not on my right arm. So there was muscle loss. And there's certain positions that I can't lift items, but it is slowly gaining back now. And I actually feel like both shoulders are a little bit more equal now, whereas the right shoulder used to feel so tense, so hard, and now it just feels like it's been like, relaxed. So it's been a lot of work on making myself relax too. It was not easy to believe I was getting better, but that was what I chose to believe. And because I was doing so many good things for myself, I can't imagine as healthy as, like I said, and this has made me wonder, is maybe the difference between, this is just a theory that I've come up with. This has actually caused more questions than answers. The difference between a malignant tumor and a benign tumor, is it what it's growing in? Is it the petri dish, which is the body that it's growing in? And I just felt like I had done so many things for my body previous to this healing crisis that I know that it wasn't, cancer doesn't want unhealthy cells. It only wants to go for unhealthy. So I just knew that my body had been protected by what I had already done. If I kept going with the cleansing protocols, that it was just at the last stage of.
Yeah, and from the GNM perspective, the malignant, it's just what point do they take a snapshot? What's going on with the individual when they take the snapshot of the tumor? If they take a snapshot in the first phase of the restoration phase, they see rapid proliferation of tissue cells. They'll say, oh, that's malignant, it's growing. Versus if they take a snapshot after the healing crisis in the scarification phase, they're like, oh, it's benign. and, or, just depending on the type of tissue that it is, the type of conflict that the person has going on. But yeah, your mental strength and your decision. And that's really a lot of what this is that decisiveness of like, what do you want to believe? And a lot of times people are just, they're conflicted. They're worried. They don't know anyone who has allowed their body to heal on its own. And so all they have in their mind are the scary stories and the statistics and the opinions of the doctors. And the thing is like the doctors and their opinions, it's not that they're wrong, but they're like in their own little worldview. They don't understand the bigger picture of the 5 biological laws. They don't see the importance of the emotional state of the individual. They don't understand that when you tell someone, oh, only 10% of people make it through this, that has a profound impact on that person's mental and emotional state and other conflicts that they develop during that time. And so if you could, just a couple of questions about how you felt when you first discovered the lump. And obviously you had the GNM background, you kind of understood, but this is when that for many women is another shock. It's the, oh my God, there's a lump here, the freak out, the imagination running. How did you, in those moments when you first discover it, kind of stay calm about it and not freak out and run, to have it tested?
One, because I know that people don't die from the tumors unless it's blocking an airway or something like that. So I know that you cannot die from a tumor in the breast. And I shouldn't say that so conclusively, because there's always things that happen to people who don't take care of their health. But it's not the tumor that ultimately, I think, kills the person. Usually I think it's just poor health insurance. But I guess with my confidence, I honestly felt like after all of the years of studying how to reverse disease in the body, I felt like this was my final test. This is like the universe saying, okay, let's see you do it. So I took it upon also I did feel like it was, you always hear people say it was my wake-up call. My wake-up call to treat myself better. So I actually felt like this was my wake-up call. Because I have done so much better treating myself since New Year's Eve. I still haven't had any alcohol since. And it's not that I intended to just stop drinking alcohol. It's just that I knew that I needed to give my liver a break so that everything in the body had a chance to work properly right now. But I'm so far away from it now that I just feel like I can move forward without it. And I don't have the anger. And I know that the lady that did the thermography with me did actually mention that had I had the image taken in the fall when it was growing, that's probably when it would have shown to be, like you said, malignant. So that's one of the reasons I waited it until after it was all done to go and get a snapshot. And at that point, it was like, well, now it's done.
That's so relevant, is just understanding yourself. And because if you had gone at that time and someone said that word to you while it was going on, it's like, that does trigger certain things. Like even for confident people, if someone tells you, oh, this, based on the snapshot we took, even if you have that bigger picture in mind, you knew yourself well enough. You're like, I'm just not gonna look for now until I'm sure I'm over the hump, which I just think is so, it's so inspiring. And that's really why, I'm so glad that you reached out and were open to making this video, because we really just want to inspire people with what's possible. Obviously the path that Patty took is not for everyone. And, every individual is so different in their belief system, in their particular conflicts, the other conflicts that they have going on. There's no one size fits all in GNM, which is really what I love about it, because it focuses on a unique individual and all of the details of their experience and their beliefs. And so this isn't like, oh, this, just do what Patty did. This is pay attention to yourself, to your own beliefs, know where you are in relationship to your understanding of GNM, diving into it and really just like you did, you're like, I just watched the videos, and the videos really, they showed me things and it set my mind at ease. And I had, all this other healing knowledge and background and looked at this. And that's the thing, is how are you looking at this? If, what is your internal image of cancer? A lot of people, it's like this scary monster in your body that's waiting to just take over everything. And you're like, oh, you didn't have that vision of cancer in your body. You knew it was a healing process.
Many people do. And I think that is a problem. I think when people are told they have cancer, well, I'm done now, you know, and sometimes even the oncologist encourage that by telling them, like, you have this much time to live. And sure enough, they die right about the time they're supposed to die. And it's like all you can do to get in that person's head and say, no, you don't have to die. When you look at all these things you're not doing that we could be doing that would extend that time. So I just knew that if I just went for it all the way 100%, which is what I did, that was the only shot that I believe a person has to get well again, is to just get well. You want to get healthy? Get healthy. And these are things that anybody has to do to get healthy. So you're no different just because you have cancer. You might just have to work a little harder and faster. But I felt very comfortable because I understood German New Medicine before this whole thing started, and I just watched it happen, right? And it's helped me to understand this in a whole new way, where maybe I can help others with their emotional problems that I wasn't even addressing before, you know? And you were right in one of your videos about the breast cancer, that right before the lump starts or before the problem starts, you feel the best you've ever felt. And I did, because that was right after the rebirth. And I felt like, oh, I got to stop being so angry. So I was like on my way to feeling great. And then all of a sudden, all this tumor stuff starts. And it was because of German New Medicine that I was able to basically be painfully comfortable through the whole process. So thank you.
Yeah, that is just so incredible, because like you said, it's when you just experience this sense of relief when you finally process the grief, you let go of the anger, you let go of something. And so everything, there's like this magical week or several days where you're like feeling great, but then you get, it seems like, hit with a wall of symptoms or a lump or something. And if your mindset isn't in the right place, it seems like adding insult to injury. Is you had a major trauma, and now you have a major diagnosis. And a lot of people will kind of go into that mindset of life is not fair. Why would God do this to me? Why would this happen? I had this huge trauma. I lost my father. I lost my child. I lost, someone very near and dear to me. And now on top of that, I have cancer. But when you see the whole picture and you understand that they're tied, they are directly linked. Your emotional trauma is what sets off the adaptation process, and now you're in a healing phase. When you have that vision, when you have that understanding, when you see what Dr. Hammer saw of, he lost his son, his 17-year-old son, and which led to testicular cancer. And when you see the whole thing, it's like, oh, that makes perfect sense. I had a huge trauma. I was upset about it for 6 months, a year, 10 years. I finally resolved it. Now my body is repairing itself. It's just such a different meaning. You don't see it as disease. You don't see it as something going wrong. You see it as, oh, this is right on track. My body is doing what it needs to do. And, and during that time, many people will seek out, support and nutritional things and things that they can do to feel proactive during that time while their body restores. And even in some situations, people may decide, oh, this lump scares me so much, I think I just need to have this thing removed. And that might be the best choice for some people, because if they're so psychologically, they can't get over the fact that the lump means healing. If they, are terrified of it every day, if they look at it every day and feel bad about themselves, that's where, metastasis, it's not the cancer spreading, it's you having additional conflicts, devaluing yourself, which affects the lymphatic tissue, the bone. And so that's why, I'm just thank you so much for sharing your story, because I think it's going to give so many people so much just like, that relax, that relief of, she followed this path. that means that I could do it too. Not that I have to, not that I must, not that I'm obligated, but it is possible to go through an entire, breast cancer, potentially even, who knows, if there was bone cancer, with the whole healing process. We don't know what tissues exactly were involved with your shoulder, but what we do know is you made it through, and you're in that scarification phase that, everything's just kind of remodeling, getting back to normal homeostasis, and mentally, emotionally, you're in a wonderful place. And I just can't thank you enough for being, open enough to share this story with everyone.
Well, I thank you also for allowing me to share this, because I also feel like a lot of women go through this and don't know that they even have the option to just do what I did. And I agree with you that what I chose to do is not for everyone, but it is possible.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's really, that's what we wanted people to know, is that it's possible. The biological laws are laws. They apply to every single person in every single situation. And by deepening your understanding, your confidence in your body, your faith in yourself, your, getting to that place of emotional relaxation is so profound. So thank you again. I think we'll wrap it up here, and, maybe we'll check in the future, see how everything is coming along. Is there anything else you want to share with everyone?
No. I look forward to talking to you again in the future, and maybe give it another 3 months and maybe one more round of ozone shots, and I think it'll be a done deal. But thank you for your videos, which helped me get through this with confidence.
Awesome. You are so welcome. That's exactly why I created them. It's, you just never know who it's going to reach at the right time, where it's going to help them to process and get through something that otherwise might be a very scary situation. So awesome. Thank you so much again, Patty. Bye-bye.